Hello and welcome to the Anti-Hustle Chronicle, a place where we talk about finding flow in your life without the hustle. And today I'd like to welcome Marie Tanabe to the conversation. So Marie is a certified high performance coach as well as an integrative nutrition coach. In her previous career, she was a multi-million-dollar top producing realtor in South Florida for about 20 years. As rewarding as the success and recognition was, it came with the price of exhaustion and a life out of balance. Exhausted, depleted, she was determined to find a new way to define success, and she did. Through the implementation of high performance habits and an integrative nutrition lifestyle, she now has a successful life that includes a thriving business, consistent time with family and friends, a daily workout, guitar lessons, and a healthy diet. The icing on the cake, she gets to live in her favorite place in the world, New York City, and she's in walking distance from her 3 sons. Marie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great intro. Thanks.
So happy to have you here. So we're just going to jump right in, and I'm going to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey. So I touched on it quickly in the intro, but take us through that a little bit.
Yeah. And well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
Pleasure.
And you know what? The journey, you did a great job of explaining it. So I was a producer in Florida, a realtor, 20 years, loved what I was doing, but it really took a toll on my life. I started out as an individual realtor, built a team, became a top producing group at 2 big agencies in South Florida. And it was a lot of work, all of my time, pretty much on the phone, absolutely 7 days a week, 24/7, always working, always thinking about the next client. And it was okay. It was okay for a while. And then all of a sudden your body says, oh my God, what are you doing to me? I can't do this anymore. And it really happened. One day I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed. I was in bed for a week and I was really stressed. It was just a hard time. It was a hard time, very, very busy, a lot of people to manage. Several people on my team were not in alignment with what I thought my business model should look like. So there was some friction there. And my body just gave out and said, look, if you're not going to take care of me, I'm going to make you take care of me. So that's when I had the epiphany of, oh my God, you've got to make some changes. You've got to simplify some things. So luckily, I don't even know how I found Brendon Burchard and high performance coaching, but I needed someone to help guide me through this because I knew I couldn't figure my way out anymore. So I went through his program, and at that point it was called Achievement Acceleration, right? Now I thought, okay, great. I'm going to just work on my business, figure out how to make it better, streamline it, make my money, and then I can retire and life will be great. So by week 4, I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, I thought this is about my business. Like, come on. What are we talking about? Values and clarification. I said, I thought this was about accelerating my business. And the coach laughed at me and said, if that's what you think this is, you might be in the wrong place. And that just hit me like, oh my God. So I stuck with it. And you know what happened? It was like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. What do I really want in my life? If I'm not living in alignment with that, everything else is going to be off kilter, which was what was happening for me. So through their help and through the program, I was able to realize that my number one value was my family and my personal relationships. I was single in Florida, working like crazy, no time for friends, certainly no time for dating. And all 3 of my sons were living in New York. And here I am in South Florida. So through the program, I found the courage to say, okay, enough is enough. Enough is enough. You need to make some big changes. So I truly sold my house, sold my car, packed up my little boxes, and moved to New York City. Wow. Not knowing what I was going to do, didn't really have a job, knew I could still maintain some type of real estate in South Florida. So I did that for 2 years, traveling back and forth, making the transition, and it was fine. But you know what? The minute I landed here, I knew I was in the right place and everything fell into place. See my sons on a regular basis. One got married. I have a grandson now, and I was able to be part of that. And I made a great group of friends very quickly. So that was the great part. Then what am I going to do for work? Well, guess what? Everything flowed. I got a certification in integrative nutrition, which I've always been interested in since I was very young, very much into fitness. It was a big part of my life. And then eating healthy. I got back on track with that through the program. And then I decided Brendan's program was so effective that I wanted to help other women do this too. So I ended up becoming a coach, and it's like the perfect world, right? Living in the place I want, being with my family, doing things that really make a difference in other women's lives and to help them through the process that I went through. So honestly, I'm living my life, my best life that I chose to have, that wasn't dictated to me or felt that I was stuck in. And
And
I feel like
that's,
I need to break out.
yeah.
Hmm.
And that's the best part, because your story sounds or reminds me a lot of mine from the perspective of I'm living the life I want to live, not the life that somebody says I should be living,
I know.
or the life that kind of fell on my lap because I didn't know what I really wanted to do.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because one of the books that really stays with me
Mhm.
every day is the 5 regrets of the dying. And the number one regret is what you just said. It's living a life that others wanted for me, not the
Mhm.
one I wanted for myself.
Mhm.
And and you know what? So many of us are stuck in that pattern of I have to, I have to, I have to. But really, if you just take a moment and ask, do I really have to? Do I really have to? What is it that I really need? How much is enough? What's really important to me? And I think, and you and I are very similar. We're worker bees, right? We just do really well, and we go and we go and we go. And you just keep going, and you never stop to say, wait, is this really what I want? And and that's why the coaching is so important. It's really for that. It's for helping people take pause.
Mhm.
And maybe that you are exactly where you're supposed to be and you love it. All right. Well, maybe we can make that a little bit better,
Yeah.
right? Helping you with some habits. But maybe you're not. And maybe you're like us and you're like, whoa, this is so out of alignment. Why aren't I happy? I should be happy. And how many of us ask that question?
Yeah.
I should be happy. Life is great. I have a house, a car, a great relationship. I have a great job. But there's always that little feeling in your gut of something's not right. Something's not right. And and I think that's when that happens and you can help someone figure out what's not right and tweak it to where you wake up every day and like, I love my life is just a gift.
Yeah. I fully agree. And I think the important thing that you just said is should, right? I should be happy.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why we say I should be happy is because, in my view, we're following somebody else's idea of what success is instead of defining for ourselves what that is, what success is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know. I know. So I have a question for you because I wonder about this. We're talking about what makes us happy. Did it take you a while to figure out what makes you happy? Did you know?
I knew what didn't make me happy.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that was a great place to start,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
once I started eliminating the noise and the things that did not make me happy, I was able to start to see the things that made me happy come through. And then I
Okay.
was able to readjust and reassess so that I could
Mm-hmm.
focus on those things. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I woke up one day and it was like, oh, this is what makes me happy. It was more like, okay, I know I don't want this.
Yeah.
So how do I explore more about the things I want?
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how about for you?
I think it honestly, it took a while. Like, I just chuckle because I'll just use a dating example. Like people would say, so yeah, so what do you do for fun? And I would be like, oh my God, I hope they don't ask me that question. Because I was just a workaholic.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. And I would say, oh my God, please don't ask me. Like, because I don't have any hobbies. I don't do things for fun. I'm just working. And it took me, honestly, it took me a while of getting out of that workaholic, busy, and stop and move to New York. And then I remembered who I was.
Yeah.
But it took me, honestly, a couple of years to say, oh yeah, I remember that girl that used to have fun, the girl that used to love music, right? Like I finally found her again, but it took a while because I was just so used to producing like that. You were on that path.
So if I had to ask you this question about fun, right?
Mhm.
Or happiness,
Mhm.
would you have said that work was your fun and work was your happiness? Think about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you were in the middle of everything. Were the two of them so closely enmeshed for you that they were one and the same, or?
That's a good question. Yeah, absolutely. I think work was my fun, right?
Yeah.
And there were always highs and lows, right? Like when you have great people working for you and you see them blossom into becoming really good realtors, that was really fun. I love the marketing part, so I loved creating, right? Um, my monthly newsletters and the marketing materials. I loved that creative part of it. Um, I loved making the sale, like making your buyers happy, your sellers happy. So those were the good things, but then, there was a lot of negative things that came with that. But yeah, the happiness came from doing a good job. Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
nice to be able to see happiness and fun as different things now, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't even know they existed. Yeah.
So talking about that, when I say hustle,
Yes.
what comes up for you?
So interesting term, right? So when you say hustle, I immediately replace it with driven.
Okay.
I think they're different. And so hustle to me is, I think for me, it's a positive term in this respect. Like you have hustle. I think you have hustle. I have hustle. A project happens, you get it together, you figure it out, you get it done. So that's the good hustle. I think the negative part of hustle comes when you have a sustained level of hustle
Mm.
with no break, right? So yes, we need hustle for certain periods of our life or certain projects at work, but that sustained hustle over time will kill you. It's when your stress level goes up, when you don't get any sleep, when your relationships start breaking down because all you do is hustle. And I did that at work. All I did was talk about work, live my work, to the point where I went to a party one time and they were giving out little wristbands with adjectives on them. I got the workaholic one.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And it was like, yeah, no, probably don't invite Marie because she's not going to be able to come anyway. So that's that. I
Wow.
was
Okay.
that girl, right? And that's when hustle becomes detrimental
Yeah.
to your life.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. So how do you define success in the context of hustling?
Hmm.
How do you keep it more on the positive versus diving deeper or going down the rabbit hole of that negative side of hustle?
That's great. Um, I think that keeping hustle in perspective, right?
Mm.
And I love like the high performance terminology for this because to me, keeping hustle in high performance to me is, yeah, you're hustling, but you're hustling efficiently.
Okay.
You're hustling efficiently because you know what you want to get out of your day, out of this block of time. So the night before, you know what's happening the next day because you've written it down. You know what to expect. There's no surprises. You get up and you know that you have these blocks of time where you're going to work and you're going to work well, no distractions. You've shut the door. You work on your projects. you take your breaks, and you get the work done. So that's hustling efficiently to me. And then that gives me the extra time then to live my real life, right? The life that you love, whether it's your hobby or your relationships or having the chance to go work out for an hour, right? So it's hustling well in allotted times, right? Is that a
So
good?
those are the boundaries you put around it, is that time component.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how can women strike that balance between ambition and really that self-care, and I would say career, and the rest of their life? Because self-care is a part of it, it's not the whole thing.
And that's a great question, right? So when I work with clients, because I work with the over 50 high achieving woman, that's my group. What I find is they're like you and me. They just grind, they grind. And the best way for us to start is to step back. I call it the pause, the great pause. You pause before we even start. And let's talk about what you love your life to look like while you're working and having a very productive, successful life. But then what does your personal life look like? And how can we integrate both of those so that you do both well? And what happens is many of my clients they're overachievers, but they haven't set boundaries. They haven't learned to delegate well. They haven't learned how to say no in a positive way, so it's a win-win for everybody. And I think we as women still tend to be the caretakers, like we're the last ones in the office. Now, you know what? I just want to make sure everything's good. And everybody else has gone home, and you're still there making sure everything is done, it's closed up, and you're ready for tomorrow. And you're the one left, but why is that? What could you have done differently so that you could leave when everybody else left? So then it's breaking down our behaviors, our habits, and to see how we can change them so that they do have that time for themselves. I'll give you a great example, right? So one of them is, she's a CPA, she's a partner in a public accounting firm. And now September 15th is coming up. So they're going to be really busy. And she said to me yesterday, oh, well, you know what? I'm not going to be able to work out now for the next month. And I said, why is that? Oh, it's just too busy. And I said, so would you be able to fit 2 hours a week in? I don't know. And so we kept pressing her. And guess what? If she did it on the week, once a weekend, and one evening a week after work, and just put it in the calendar, could we still fit it in? So it's more like that, right? Like questioning, okay, can we fit it in? Is it that important to do it? Does that make sense?
It does. And I feel that it's also boils down to a question of prioritizing. So we are gung-ho on our careers because we feel that's where the priority needs to go. But we forget that our families also need to be prioritized. We forget our health needs to be prioritized, because if we don't have our health, we can't work. If we don't have the support from family, we're not as effective at work. So it's the ability, I think, to look at our life more holistically instead of these clearly defined silos.
I know. I think the time planning is so important. And as crazy as that sounds, you know, if it's not in the schedule, it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist, it doesn't happen. So that means that you blot out date night, that you blot out time with your kids, that you block out time to exercise. You know, you block out meal planning. Right? If those are really important to you, and that's going to give you the quality of life that you want, then you never think about it again. You open up the calendar, it's there, you just do it. right? And so when I think about what's the most important about all of this, two things. I think it's mindset, like
Mhm.
self-management. It's really self-management, right?
Yeah.
Self-management. And then the other thing, and you brought about making health your number one priority. Because you're right, if you don't have your health, you have nothing.
Yeah.
You have no value to people at work,
Mm.
your family, the ones that you care about, yourself. And then the other thing that, because of this integrative nutrition, right, program that I've gone through, and it's so important, it's like investing in your bank account, right?
Mhm.
A
Making
little bit every
deposits.
day, a little bit every day, whether you walk after work for a mile or two, but you do it 5 days a week. You decide to skip like a hamburger and eat a salad a couple of times a week, whatever those little things, over the long haul, when you're 80 or 85 and you're still able to do hikes and ride your bike, that's the payoff.
Yeah.
But you can't make up for it when you're 70. You
When you're
can't say,
seven.
oh, I'll just take care of that later. It doesn't work that way. So it's that investing in the bank a
Yeah.
little every day, and little, it doesn't have to be big,
Yeah.
but little.
Yeah. I love the idea of the bank account. So I want to go back to what you were saying before about when you open your calendar and it's there, you do it.
Mhm.
Because I've done it in the past where I open the calendar, something's on the calendar, and I'm like, no, I got to do that. So I could be like 5 o'clock, it's time to get out of here and go work out. And then it's like, no, but I need to finish this, or I'm too tired today. Like, excuse city comes in, right?
Yep.
All the excuses start coming up. So what can somebody who finds themselves in that situation, how do they stick to the commitment that they've made to themselves? I find that sometimes it's easier for us to follow through on a commitment we make to others
Mhm.
than it is to follow through on a commitment we make to ourselves.
Mhm. Mhm. It's, I think we all struggle with it.
Mm.
So you find things, or like little tips or tricks that help you self-manage, right? So habit stacking works for me, right? That's one thing that I do a lot. So an example is this: I play guitar,
Mm.
right? And the goal is that I practice a little every day, even if it's 10 minutes, doesn't matter, right? But I try to do it every day. And so what that means is in the morning when I get up, and I do drink coffee, sometimes my 1 cup. So I go get my coffee, right? And my guitar is right there by the kitchen. I get my coffee, I grab the guitar and I sit. And
Mm.
that's just what happens first thing in the morning, right? So habit stacking. I also, and it just depends what works for you. I love to like check things off.
Yeah.
So, right? So if I have my list of things to do, it's great. So every morning I know, like, okay, here's my little list. Ready? You wake up, the big glass of water is right by the bed. So before you even get out of your bed, you drink your water, right? You turn around, I make my bed, boom. Then I sit down at the bottom of my bed and I press my app and I meditate, right? And then I go brush my teeth, wash my face, go get my coffee, and I play 10 minutes or 15 minutes, right? And it's just bing, 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 bing. But I get to go check, 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 check,
Yeah.
right before I even like get in the shower. And then I feel like, I've mastered half the day already. Look what I've got done.
Yeah.
So that,
Okay.
the game that you play with yourself, like, can I do it?
Mm.
Who do you want to be? I think that's the other thing. Who do you want to be? And so you look at that schedule and like, I'm going to be that girl. I'm going to finish this and I am going to go to the workout.
Yeah.
And then you ask yourself, how could I have done this better? What happened today that stopped me from not getting this done?
Mm.
Did I answer that phone call when I could have let it go to voicemail? Did I look at my emails in the middle of this project and went down the rabbit hole?
Sidetracked. Yeah.
Right? So you kind of look at yourself. Yeah. And then company you keep is really important
Mm.
too, right? So you surround yourself with people whose mission is to become a little better every day.
Yeah.
Not hard driving, but better people, better humans, right? To help you find the balance. And I find that's super important for me, to be around the right people every day.
It does make a big difference because it's like the crabs in the bucket, right?
Yep.
When you're not around the right people, they hold you back. Whereas being around people that have a similar mindset and that have that desire to, like you said, it's not let's say the hustle, it's more the 1%ers, right? I want to be 1% better today than I was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps you on a continuous path to growth. And it makes it easier for us to be on that path because we're inspired and we see other people on that path as well.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, cool. So, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to navigate, right, the pressures of society that really, in a way, glorifies that hustle, while they're also trying to find that balance and that fulfillment?
What would I advice I would give them? I think starting with the end goal, like know where you want to be, right? Like what is it that you want at the end? Does that make sense? Like if you're in your job and you know, maybe you love your job and you're going to work until you're 75 or 80, right? And there's some people that do that and they love that, and that's great. But they could be in the hustle right now, and they know as they get a little bit older, they might be wanting to do a part of it, or the part they like the best. So you kind of start like, here's where I want to end up. Here's how I want to get there. I want to get there healthy, active, still working or partially working or spending time as a grandparent, whatever that is. And then you're here. What things can I do during this period that's going to help me get there in a healthy, less stressed way? Right? Does that make sense? So if you know you want to be like this at the end, what are you going to have to do now? Because if you're on that treadmill going, you're going to have a heart attack. You're never going to get there. So we have to start here. So let's break it down. What do you have to do? What do you have to do well? How can we carve it? How can we, it's about the time, right? How can we carve out the time? How do we do that? And many times it's really like time management and self-management. How you interact with people, your communication skills, and how you're spending your time.
And I think when you talk about time management, it's also about getting clear about what are the things we don't want. What are the things we need to get rid of so that we can focus on the right things? Because it's not always about adding. It's also about subtracting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what would you say is the biggest struggle something you're comfortable sharing, right? A struggle that you faced. How did you get past it? And how did you grow from the experience?
Yeah. The biggest struggle was letting go. My biggest struggle was letting go of this persona that I had built for 20 years. It was hard. It was really hard, right? Like, so you have this level of success. People know you. You've been around a long time. You have a reputation. And then I left at the top of my game. And I remember going into my broker's office and I said, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm done. And he looked at me and he said,
what?
No, you're not leaving. He goes, wait a minute. He goes, we're giving out awards next month and you're number 5 in the company. And I said, what? And he said, no, I didn't know. And he said, oh no, yeah, you can't leave. And you know what? And I said, I'm leaving. That was really hard.
That took courage.
Yeah, it did. It did. It took a lot of courage. But so that was the hardest thing one of the hardest things I had to do, right? But the conviction was I knew I wanted something different. I wanted something different. I didn't need this anymore to validate who I was. Does that make sense? I didn't need it anymore to validate who I was because I knew there was something more important than that.
It sounds like you had a shift in identity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where before your work and what you did and the success that you had was part of or was your identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it was something you did, it wasn't necessarily who you were. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do want to share this part too for many women, especially if you're single, because I'm still single. And you know what it was? The biggest fear of letting go for me was the fear of not having enough money.
Mm.
And once I confronted that, and it took a while, because like the question of how much is enough? How much do I really need? Right? I can't depend on anybody else. And so I was working and working and working and just banking all the money, banking, right? Because that's what you do. But then for what? And at what point is enough? How much do you really need? And that's when you begin to question, what is it that I really want in my life? Is it really just to accumulate a bank account?
Mm.
Do what? Right, you're single, your kids are far away. So what does that mean to just have money in the bank?
Yeah.
And once you feel comfortable enough, you can say, you know what? I think I can do something different that makes me light up more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And at the say that again?
that was a tough one.
Yeah. I can totally see that. I went through something similar when I made the decision to leave my corporate gig. And that's why I love asking the question, because I love to hear other women's stories. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. So we all face obstacles, right? We all have moments when life goes sideways, and it's easy to lose a little bit of our drive, lose a little bit of motivation. How do
Mm-hmm.
you get back on track when life does go sideways?
And it does. I mean, it
Always.
happens frequently. And you wonder, sometimes I wonder and I say, oh my God, I hope I wake up and I'm in a better place tomorrow.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
like you just can't get it together. Like you're like, come on, things are good, but you don't feel good. So honestly, the thing that helps me the most is meditating.
Okay.
I meditate. I've been doing it for a long time now. And it doesn't have to be long. It could be 10 to 20 minutes. When I meditate, my life just seems to just go much simpler. It's clearer. So I meditate. The other thing is, I found Pilates.
Okay.
I love Pilates. It's just part of my everyday routine now.
Okay.
And so that, I think exercise and meditation.
So I hear often from women that, oh, I don't have time to meditate, or my mind goes all over the place, or all of these things. How did you get started?
Okay, it's a great little story. I was on a real estate team, and one of the team members said, hey, I'm going to do this 21 days of abundance with Deepak Chopra, his meditation for 21 days. Do you want to join? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And that was, I don't know, like 2017 maybe.
Okay.
And do you know, I have done Deepak's every day since then. I just keep going over
Really?
and
Wow.
21 days of abundance. And every time I listen, I hear something different.
Yeah.
And so he talks a little bit, so you'll have some messaging, right, to think about. And then you just do quiet meditation. And there's a little bit of music, but you know what? It's 10 or 15 minutes. And I don't know, it just becomes a pattern, a habit. And is it hard that quieting of the mind, right? It's a gift you give to yourself. So I'll give you the example. When I first started, this was a visualization. Ready? It was windshield wipers. And I heard my brain say, oh, thank you. Thank you. As I was clearing my brain, because there's so much going on in there and it doesn't stop talking to me all day long. And so that was the visualization. These windshield wipers came in my brain and it was like, thank you. I was clearing out all the craziness. And eventually there was no craziness. It was just quiet.
I love the windshield wiper analogy. I hadn't heard that before. I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Clearing out. Yeah.
Clearing the clutter.
Yeah.
Clearing the clutter. Cool.
So good.
And you were going to say something before when I rudely interrupted you to ask you about how you got started with meditation. I thought you were going to say something else.
No, it was that. I did listen to Headspace.
Okay.
I started with that app actually before the Deepak. And I love Andy's voice. It's had a British accent, so calming. And he does great visualizations about the clutter. He uses traffic analogy of cars going around a circle. And anything that's on an app that's really quickly accessible, that's really short. And Andy's Headspace goes 1 or 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So you could start really short. Like that.
Okay. That's great. That's great. All right. So are you currently promoting any programs? Do you have any offers? Or how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. So my website is marietanabecoaching.com, my name, coaching.com. And right now I do one-on-one. I work with women over 50 that are high achievers, trying to do it all. And I have a 12-week program. It's living life on purpose, living life on purpose. So for 12 weeks, we go through how to live more intentionally, starting with what's really important to you and clarifying that, and then looking at your productivity. How do you use your time? Are you using it wisely? Can we change some things to give you more free time? We spend some time on communicating to those in your family unit and being more specific about what you want from them, and still make it a win-win. And then how do you operate at work? So learning how to set better boundaries, learning how to say no, how to delegate. So we do that. And then we do a portion on health, right? So health and wellness and strategies for maintaining a healthier lifestyle that don't take up a lot of time, right? Because you have to figure that out. And then lastly, we talk about legacy. And I know that's an important part in your coaching, but who do you want to be at the end? Who do you want to be? What kind of person did you want to be to your workers, your family, to yourself, right? And then what kind of role model do you want to be? And establishing those habits and those personality traits every day, starting now. Nice. It's a great program. Yeah.
Nice. And on social media, where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook. So okay. Marie Tanabe. Yep, Marie Tanabe, Facebook. And on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Okay. And I'll put all your information in the show notes so people can easily click and stuff like that. So I have one last question. What does living hustle-free mean for you?
Oh, living hustle-free. Oh gosh. Meaning that you're living with much less stress.
Okay.
Like, you know what? And I bet you've gotten to this point too, but isn't it lovely that nothing really stresses you out anymore. Like, you get to a point where you just accept what is, and you say, okay, here's where this is. These are my options. I'm going to choose to do this, this, and this. I may have to shuffle things around, but it's never that frenetic, oh my God, like I used to be. So somehow that transition happens when you become more mindful and intentional. Nothing's going to be perfect, but the way that you address it dramatically changes when you start to live your life more mindfully. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's it for me. A hustle-free life is it's less stress, less
Okay.
stress. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm going to say that I'm not 100% stress-free, but I'm a heck of a lot better than when I was in corporate.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we're all ever stress-free, but you know what? Remember that little book, Don't Sweat the
So the
Small
small
Stuff?
stuff, yeah.
You know what? It's become that way. It's become that way for me. I don't sweat the small stuff. Not because there's a
Awesome.
much bigger picture, right? It's more important.
And the fact that you have clarity in terms of who you are, what you want, who you're becoming, makes it that much easier not to sweat the small stuff, because in the big picture thing, the small
Right.
stuff doesn't matter.
Correct. Correct.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, Marie, it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. It really has. Thank you for having me. I've
My
enjoyed it.
pleasure. My pleasure. And let's stay in touch.
Okay. This is great. All right. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.